Mr. West.
You're all a bunch of fucking assholes. You know why? You don't have the guts to be what you want to be. You need people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy. So say good night to the bad guy. Come on. The last time you're gonna see a bad guy like this again, let me tell you.
They have to have that symbology, that numerology, and also astrology. They tie things to how the celestial alignments are occurring, both in the planetary system and in the star system. And so certain events are critical to them in order to brand something with what they consider to be winning symbology, winning numerology, winning celestial alignments. And they have this occult idea that they can time stuff in that way, brand it in that way, and they get some extra power. Look, at the end of the day, these people that we're fighting are actually, for real, certifiably insane. I mean, I'm not actually kidding about that. They're actually off their rocker completely, but you have to understand how they think in order to get to, how are you going to fight them? If you understand how they think, you got a better chance of actually anticipating, seeing how they're moving, and then getting ahead of them and stopping them. And that's part of why they'll fail. They're so locked into the symbology and numbers and everything else that they can't help themselves.
Yeah. And you can see that on 9/11 when they dropped the, Twin Towers and all the other symbology. The Earth Day is when the oil well down in the Gulf, exploded.
Yes.
So all these different things, they play these games with the numbers. And when you see that, it's like, oh, they're at it again. Yep.
Well, in fact, on the BP thing down there in the Gulf, someday I'll talk about it more in depth. Almost nobody knows that was actually a test for other things that they want to do that have to do with the other physics, and at an adjacent location there. And so there's a certain reason why that was done, in order to test expressing, manipulating things at a planetary level from that type of a location. It was a test of technology. So there's all sorts going on that we can't get out in the weeds for the time being with people, and you kind of have to have an understanding what the rest of the technology is like. But that was so much bigger than even people now understand. There was a whole bunch more going on, and that's the case with a lot of this stuff. You're seeing things that you think are just for a little local situation, but actually they're trying to get into a position where they can take over planetary control.
Y'all don't want to lose again. A lot of people here tonight felt like they lost. You know why? Because y'all been lied to. Google lied to you. Facebook lied to you. Radio lied to you. Radio, fuck you. I am putting my career, my life, my public well-standing at risk with a fake truth. We are all great people. We are all equal. But sometimes we be playing the politics too much and forgetting who we are. Just to win. Fuck winning. Fuck looking cool. Fuck looking cool. Fuck being cool. Fuck all that, bruh.
Yo, back in this bitch for some more podcasting and shit. Back in this bitch for another one. Go Deep, episode 215. Now this one probably gonna be a ringer, as they call it. This one gonna be a ringer. Let's see, let me turn my shit off. But first, before we let this be a ringer, let's get back in it. Let's listen to some music. That's what we should do. After, hope you like the intro. Hope you're gonna like the song. We'll be right back. Yeah, bitch.
Look, Chief, there's only one way to catch these grave diggers. We gotta go deep into the underground.
You're nuts. You know what I've got to do to get you permission to dig up a grave?
Yo, I'm coming in black and running the track. I dare you to overreact. I'm placing the mic, standing in my right hand, digging a hole in your back. Just for the record, I'm making it perfectly clear that my method is sever the air of the biggest and baddest, regardless of status, is hazardous when I appear. Fake cats will tremble in fear unless you repent or beware. I'm mentally damaged and fractured your cabbage way beyond repair. Carrying tools while others be bragging about they carrots and jewels. It's a marriage of fools. Stick up, now you're left in a blood pool. Illiterate, limited, primitive, inconsiderate piece of shit. I stick you for your ice with the graveyard pick. I'm sicker than sickle cell, putting you through triple hell, ripping your whole shell, then I cripple you as well.
Torn between the weed and the occasion occupation. Bitches are starstruck on location. Keeping the fact, here in the loot, not include. Banging and bouncing, nigga through doom. Picking them up, ripping his gut, blood spraying across the room. Peeling your skin dry, hoping your ass die. Fuck a prayer, dragon slayer, organ donor. A nigga that's quick to bone your black bitch. Walking and talking and spitting and breathe. Water moaning, lighting the fuse, setting your ass on fire. I burn ya, begging and plead. Where to begin? Niggas is lost, covered with sin. Nigga that wanna step, same nigga get disrespect, holding it down, mixing the mud, corner the cave. Niggas a slave with affidavits, rolling the globe unknown and nameless.
The GRAVEDIGG, a zigzag chamber, got cats in danger. The hot flows major, the show's got flavor. You all know the caper, God control your paper. The GRAVEDIGG, a zigzag chamber, got cats in danger. The hot flows major, the show's got flavor. You all know the caper, God control your paper. Severely poor, yes I was here before, now it's a daily war. If the hustle fail me or derail me, I'ma be jailed for sure. Pressure be escalating, stakes be testing my patience. Satan be putting the thought in my head to lay awake and waste men. But they be black like me, and they react like me. Carry a gat like me, producing the drama like Spike Lee. Hoodies and Tim's nightly, maneuvering packed tightly. Keeping the block spicy, and like they wrist icy. For a limited time, the criminal mind will shine before they find they dumb and deaf and blind. Either be God or be a swine, you know the graveyard anthem. Digging your brain sanctum, grim reap, poetic, Tony titanium out like a phantom.
Leaving collegiate, listen to pair, leaving the trap sector, catching a snare, breathing the air, picking up fears like bone collector. Slipping the deuce, turning the juice, niggas are lost in thought, unfaded in appearance, running past interference. Nigga with trend, tearing the raid, causing the earth to shake. Rate of percussion next to nothing, my molecules running constant. Microphone leaving the struck, wrapped employment, guns I bust, never to sink or drop. I'm ready to bust shots, the hideous, deep in the dark, mysterious, dark, delirious, blow the head off distortion, displayed in proportions, maintaining a grim tail, remaining to raise hell, fuck the cloning, a nigga receive death to my opponents.
The GRAVEDIGG, a zigzag chamber, got cats in danger. The hot flows major, the show's got flavor. You all know the caper, God control your paper. The GRAVEDIGG, a zigzag chamber, got cats in danger. The hot flows major, the show's got flavor. You all know the caper, God control your paper. The
Oh no, you mustn't be frightened. Let me try and help once again.
The hot flows major, the show's got flavor. You all know the caper, God control your paper. The GRAVEDIGG, a zigzag chamber, got cats in danger. The hot flows major, the show's got flavor. You all
Gold D episode 215. Oh shit. Your mother's favorite podcast. So, what we're going to talk about today. We are still talking about the fuckers. We're still talking about, you know, the usual. But right now we're going to do this kind of like a little wrap up. Maybe not a wrap up yet because it's oh shit. You can kind of look at it because this ending video I'm gonna put in is gonna have a lot of talk about shit that we've covered, but it's gonna kind of wrap it up a little bit better than what we've done. Not better, but it's gonna kind of wrap it up with some white people talking, of course, because they do a good job at wrapping shit up. But yeah, I keep yawning. So, let's see. I hope y'all like that song. Like I always say, I probably already said that. So the fuckers. What on this particular talk, I wanted to talk about certain things. How the fuckers be near and far. I've always said that. I've always been saying that. And a lot of times when I, kind of get wrapped up on the fuckers, that before people would try to get on my podcast and hey can I whatever, I want to talk about this and I want to talk about that, but usually what it did is it just distracted me from the regular shit we've been talking about. So recently we all know we had that election fraud, and that was we had a stolen election, and that was triggered me into being pretty much not away from the Snyder Cut movement, but I just had to focus on the real shit because, what we looking at right now, we saw yesterday with the, the health secretary. God damn, I keep yawning. I think she's a transsexual woman or dude or something, but she's with Biden, and she was talking about or he or whatever, talking about how to trying to suggest that they want to give kids a sex change and how to stop a male or a female puberty before it happens and all this other fuck shit. And you kind of look at it like, damn, this is really where America is at right now. And it's like, I wish I could stop yawning. I hope y'all forgive me, but I don't know. I had enough sleep, I guess. But so we look at it like, damn, is this where America is at? And we look at it with the election. And when we had the election, it was like blatant, obvious cheating and obvious bullshit. So we were like, yo, there's no way possible. Well, I was thinking there's no way possible in America this could happen. Like all that shit that happened from, pulling ballots from under the tables and getting caught on camera but still getting away with it, and, closing down stations and closing down voting and closing down counting so people could, bring some more cheating in. And then you saw this one guy who invented the QR code. The election machines wasn't even supposed to be on the internet, and this one guy hacked them and showed that, oh my goodness, it showed that they were on the internet. I know I'm making y'all yawn too, but just stay with me, because when I yawn, I know other people yawn too. But so just so much fuck shit going on. But what it did is that 2020 is like the clearest vision, right? So you gotta, in 2020, we started seeing how this shit could happen. So then Time magazine came out with this article afterwards, like after all the shit happened, after inauguration and everything. Time magazine came out with an article like, oh yeah, there was a big group of cabal members that got together and they stopped the they preserve democracy is what they said, but they really just cheated the election just to get Trump out. But the bigger question is, how is that much blatant cheating happening and nobody took care of it? But we know why. We just don't never want to admit it. We know why it happened. We know how it happened. We just don't ever want to admit why it's going on. The reason we don't want to admit it a lot of times is because a lot of people involved are in these secret societies. A lot of people that's talking to us, even in these chat rooms, they are in these secret societies. And they don't want to, when someone like me hovers over these kind of questions and say the shit that I do, they would do whatever they got to take to make me either look stupid, discredit me, or fight against me, or do whatever, because this type of shit is not supposed to be said. This is why the fuckers be winning. This is why the fuckers are able to do some of the shit that they're able to do, because nobody really speaks up against them. So I'm not nobody special, but I can speak up against them because I see them and it's obvious. So the fuckers, even in our Snyder Cut movement, I see a lot of people, complain all the time about all kind of shit, but they never really do shit about it. They never really say shit about it. It's like a microcosm of our own life. They can complain 24/7, but they never really take action. It's usually just a bunch of complaints. But me, I'm going to say something. I always been that person who's going to say what I got to say. And then, but what I say is usually, maybe it cuts deep, I don't know. But I know when my shit is not random. My shit is very targeted and very, very, very planned out, strategic, because I've seen this shit for a long time, even in our movements. Like everything that happened to Zach, like cancel culture and all this shit, is the same shit that happened to everyone that had to deal with cancel culture. It's like the same shit that happened to Trump, the same shit that happened to almost everyone that ever dealt with it, the same shit that happened to Dave Chappelle, the same shit that happens to a lot of people. They push the issue in their culture because culture is so huge that it is able to change the minds of the world. Just art is able that strong. So when I got into this movement, I knew kind of what cancel culture was already. And, I think I was the first one saying this shit about cancel culture or about Jeff Johns or anything like that, because a lot of people probably knew, but a lot of people wasn't saying it because a lot of people were probably scared of the fuckers, or a lot of people are the fuckers. So what I've been noticing lately is like in chat rooms, and I'm building this other chat room that's fucking dope. It's gonna be super dope when this shit get amped and this shit get popping. But we talk about that later. But I'm noticing in chat rooms there are a lot of fuckers in the chat rooms, and they want to prevent real information from being put out. They want to prevent real narratives from being spoken, and they want to prevent real progress from happening. And I've seen it. It's been like that for a long fucking time. So we get what gives them away is sometimes you can have a regular conversation, and sometimes they'll be smart as fuck on these particular subjects, right? And then they will have so much shit to say that could have led us to the promised land years ago, or still could have us not in these certain situations right now. But they haven't said this until, you got to push their buttons a little bit to get them to talk regular. But these are the fuckers, and the fuckers are everywhere. You can't escape these guys. The only thing you can do is call them out, because they practice in silence and they practice in secrecy. But when you call them out, they get pissed. They get ruffled. But that's just what I'm going to do, because I'm not going to beat my ass or nothing like that. So it is what it is. You have to speak truth to these people because they're practicing in fucking darkness, silence, behind the scenes. This how it works. So when Time Magazine is telling you about this secret cabal, we haven't met the secret cabal yet. Like it's 2021 and nobody's ever told us about this secret cabal that could change the election. Like, come on, dog. Who are these guys? But they're a secret cabal. But no, we know who they are. We just don't want to say it. So when these people changing the world, like talking about, little kids now can have sex changes and they're changing America, we know why they're changing America, because they're getting America involved in this fuck shit. So if America is involved in the fuck shit, then America is not America anymore. So when someone tries to take over the country, the mindset of freedom that America has, when someone tries to take over the world, America usually stands in that way. So if you change America's mentality and the way of thinking and how we address certain issues, America won't stand in their way no more. That's what's going on right now. That's what's always been going on even with the Snyder Cut movement. We look and we talk about, all this DC shit and, like James Gunn just announced he's going to do another DC movie, and we're talking about, oh, this director is cool with James Gunn, but then James Gunn is probably a pedophile, so then it's like, damn, are we cool with pedophilia now? But we don't say shit because we kind of idolize these guys. We kind of, we let that kind of shit slide, because we idolize them. Or the people that's creating the narratives are fuckers. And the people that's sucking up the narratives are just dumb. They don't understand what they're accepting. So the fuckers shoot these narratives out, like Armie Hammer saying he wanted to eat somebody or some bullshit like that, and nobody has questioned that. But there's thousands of fucking stories that come out of Hollywood of these weirdos every fucking day. Nobody acts on them. So we accept the weirdos because we idolize stars. We idolize Hollywood people, celebrities and shit like that. But this, like, Isaac Cappy can come out and say, yo, I've been around these guys more than you have, and they've been raping kids and killing kids and all this other crazy shit, and nobody addresses it because they say he's crazy. Then he gets killed, and Tom Hanks tweets out his exact location where he died and says it's roadkill, and nobody questions Tom Hanks. But Tom Hanks will get a movie out and everyone goes to it and cry. This is the brainwashing we're at. If Tom Hanks was in the DCEU right now, we would be applauding Tom Hanks. We would make that shit trending. But we don't know that someone in the industry has just accused Tom Hanks of doing some fuck shit. But this is the spell we're under. I'm not under that spell, and I'm not going to be under that spell, so I'm just going to talk shit. So a lot of our shit that we see in this movement is not real. Most of this shit is not real. But the mentality of us, we're being herded like sheep by fuckers in our movement that's acting like regular people. And also, the sheep are too scared, ignorant, or fucking retarded to wake up and say, damn, this ain't right. We got pedophiles tweeting pedophilia shit. We got people talking about they want to eat people, and they're still getting these green lights to make these movies, standing right next to the people who we claim to love. But it ain't right. So when you see these shit like, just, you can see anything. And it's probably not how it happened. You can see the worst crime, death, all kind of shit. And then they will put it out in a magazine, and then we'll be like, oh yeah, it was out in the magazine, so I guess it's true. Bitch, wake the fuck up. You believe this shit? do y'all really believe this shit? No, you're under a spell from fuckers, 1, and 2, you're too pussy and too scared to do anything about it. And then when you kind of hinting at it, when you kind of say some shit about it, the fuckers gonna jump on you. But they can't beat my ass, so they can jump on me all they want. But I'm not going to stop. You can say whatever you gotta say. You can do whatever, you can screenshot whatever the fuck you gotta screenshot and show it to whoever the fuck you want to show it to. I'm still not gonna stop. I'm still not gonna stop. These fuckers are trying to run the world through America. That's obvious. And they're only doing it because the American people are too pussy to address them. That's what's going on. These fuckers are in every chat room that you're in. They're in every movement online, from Alita's army to Star Wars army to Zack Snyder's movement to every fucking thing. They're in Hollywood. They're in Washington, D.C. They're in every fucking state around this bitch. Every major country around this bitch. And they're controlling everyone with false narratives and bullshit. And behind the scenes, they do crazy shit like hunt people, kill people, rape kids, eat kids, all the most devilish shit you can think of. So when you see these tragedies in life happen and these people acting like they're so sad and this, no, they don't give a shit. You know? None of this shit is real. It's all a fucking illusion. It's all an illusion. So they just use more illusionary shit to build more fucking narratives, to build more kingdoms of fuck shit. And somebody got to say it, or we're always going to deal with the fuck shit. But we're not always going to deal with the fuck shit, because these fuckers are going to lose eventually. And if we keep speaking out against the fuck shit, if we keep speaking out against, speaking truth to power, as they say, eventually those 300 monkeys, that they say it only takes 300 monkeys to change every monkey on the planet. It only takes 300 humans to change the brains of all humans. We're that connected on this planet. That is culture. That's what culture does. Culture connects through the minds of the masses. You change culture, you influence a narrative through culture, you can change the world. That's what we're gonna do on this show. As long as I got breath to breathe and air and money to make my shit, I am going to be at least one of those 300 monkeys. And if it's just one, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with just being by myself, because I will fuck all of y'all up. And that's just that. Let's get into some white people shit. Yeah, bitch.
This video is supported by CuriosityStream. August 30th, 1949 was not a great day for most people in the United States, because that was the morning that they got up and while eating their breakfast, they read their newspaper and found out that the Soviet Union had their own atomic bomb. Well, if that don't just burn your bacon. Up until then, we were the only country that had this incredibly dangerous weapon, and it wasn't just that one of our ideological enemies now had this thing, it was how they got it. Spies. An international espionage ring that got their hands on the blueprints, and now they have a weapon that could take out one of our cities. This kicked off the Cold War, and with it, an obsession in national security circles with spies. The entire world basically became a spy versus spy comic. Like, this is a thing that actually happened. Georgy Markov was a Bulgarian dissident. He had fled the country because he had spoken out against the communist government, so he sought refuge in London. So one day he's in London, he's waiting on a bus, and some stranger passes by and accidentally pokes his leg with his umbrella. Only it wasn't a stranger, it was a Russian spy, and it wasn't an accident, and the umbrella was fitted with a pellet gun that fired a tiny little, almost invisible pellet filled with ricin powder. Just enough to kill a man. Which it did, 4 days later. This idea, this feeling that anybody could be a spy and nobody was safe, was just pervasive in the post-war years. It even made its way into our cartoons. Did you ever wonder where Boris and Natasha came from? And it was in this environment of panic and secrets and one-upsmanship that the CIA concocted one of the craziest schemes they would ever come up with. The idea was what if you could control people's minds? Like, what if you could brainwash a rival spy to work for us and not even know they're doing it? Give us any secret we could possibly want, even carry out assassinations for us. This program became known as MK Ultra. MK Ultra was a top secret project spearheaded by the CIA that was kept out of the public's knowledge until 1974, when the story was broken by Seymour Hersh of the New York Times. To this day, it's still shrouded in secrets and mystery, and it's the birthplace of 1,000 conspiracy theories. It was the brainchild of CIA Director Allen Dulles, who apparently got the idea after hearing reports of American prisoners being brainwashed during the Korean War. In fact, he warned in a speech at Princeton in 1953 of Soviet brain warfare. Based on this concern, he gave the green light for the CIA to research what kind of drugs and hypnosis, electroshock therapy, and other various and sundry methods could be used to actually control people's minds. Luckily for Dulles and his team of mind melters, there was a new drug out there that was all the rage with the beatniks and the weirdos, known as lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD. I don't need to explain to you what LSD does. It's been around for a while now, but at the time it was brand new, and the people at the CIA started to wonder if this would be a way to kind of open up people's minds and allow you access to it and control over it. So at the same time that there was a nuclear Cold War going on, there was also something of an LSD Cold War going on, with reports in the 1940s that the Soviet Union was actually trying to buy up the world's supply of LSD, which the CIA assumed meant that they were on their way to deploying legions of acid-controlled sleeper agents into the field, which is dishonorable, unethical, illegal, and damn it, we're just gonna have to do it first. The goal of MK Ultra was to turn subjects into unwilling assassins. In one of their experiments, they tried to brainwash a woman into shooting another sleeping woman in the room. And in another experiment, they tried to implant a trigger into a subject's mind that could be spoken over the phone that would cause them to go and plant a bomb somewhere. Some of the subjects in these experiments were volunteers, many of them from the military ranks and universities, but some of them were prisoners. In fact, some pretty notable prisoners. One was Boston crime boss James Whitey Bulger, who volunteered in 1957 in exchange for some bonus good time. According to Whitey, we experienced horrible periods of living nightmares and even blood coming out of the walls. Guys turning to skeletons in front of me. I saw a camera change into the head of a dog. I felt like I was going insane. I mean, don't feel too bad for the convicted multi-murderer, but you know, blood coming out of the walls doesn't sound like a great day. In later life, Bulger claimed that some of the experiments gave him permanent brain damage, which is certainly not something that he signed up for. But at least he did sign up for it, because a lot of people didn't. Later on, testimony from a CIA official claimed that there were actually a lot of private companies that were working with the CIA on MK Ultra, and they had no idea that they were doing it. And this is also true of a lot of different agencies and institutions as well. And the names were withheld in these experiments to protect the subjects' identities, as well as to protect the CIA's own butts. But because of that, there's a lot of mystery still surrounding all this. There's a lot of stuff that we don't know that actually happened, but what we do know is pretty bad. Like the fact that they secretly experimented on mental patients. You know, people with no autonomy and who are already a little disconnected from reality. So, that's cool. Ironically, some of the most damaging experiments took place in Canada. Yes, Canada, the home of Alan Thicke, Dudley Do-Right, and Michael Cera, also played host to MK Ultra's Subproject 68, which just sounds like something out of Stranger Things. There were 149 known subprojects of MK Ultra, and 6 of which performed their experiments on unwitting victims. This one was one of the worst. Dr. Donald Cameron, a respected Scottish-American psychiatrist, began working with the CIA in 1957. From then up until 1964, he subjected patients at a mental hospital in Montreal to variations of a technique he called psychic driving. Some patients were dosed at LSD, some were given electroshocks, some were kept in medically induced comas for weeks while they listened to taped messages, and some got a buffet of all the above. The point was to break the subjects mentally, basically erasing who they were so they could be built up again. And in several cases, Cameron was actually able to delete memories. In some of his patients, they were reduced back to childlike toddler states, like some of them had to be re-potty trained. In 1980, a Canadian news program, The Fifth Estate, interviewed some of the victims of Dr. Cameron. They told of changes in personality, the loss of ability to focus, and psychosis being induced in some patients. One man supposedly leapt from the roof of the hospital to his death after a period of sleep therapy and psychic driving. He was not the only fatality. Back in the United States, MK Ultra experiments were responsible for the deaths of 2 men, including Harold Blower, a professional tennis player, in 1953. Harold had checked himself into the New York State Psychiatric Institute to deal with depression that stemmed from his divorce. While there, the doctor secretly gave him injections of the drug MDA, which is similar to MDMA. After one of these injections, his body went into some kind of fit, slipped into a coma, and he died. The other man was Frank Olson, who was a bacteriologist working for the CIA at the time. He was working on biological weapons, which was kind of a third arms race going on at that time. On November 28, 1953, at 2:25 a.m., Frank jumped through the window of his 10th floor hotel room at the New York Statler Hotel. His death was officially listed as a suicide, but the whole thing was super fishy, like the fact that he washed his socks and hung them up to dry before he killed himself. Like, who washes their socks before they kill themselves? Also, a lot of his injuries weren't consistent with falling, so it was thought that he was actually beaten up quite a bit before he flew out of the window. In fact, he may have already been dead. And as this got investigated, the strings just kind of unraveled. Apparently his boss was Sidney Gottlieb, who was the head of MK Ultra at the time, and apparently there was a history there of him dosing Frank with LSD without his knowledge, kind of abusing him a little bit, maybe even treating him like his own little experiment. Or it's possible he just didn't trust Olson and thought he was going to flip and become a double agent. Either way, Frank Olson was taken out. It was made to look like a suicide. Something that's totally never happened again. And just 1 year after Frank Olson's death, Boss of the Year Sidney Gottlieb authorized a new project, and just to, crank up the creep factor a little bit more, this one involved whores. Lots of whores. The CIA basically used prostitutes to lure men into hotel rooms where they would then be laced with LSD, cannabis, truth serum, you name it, and then the sex workers would work their sex on the men and try to get them to admit to scandalous things, try to get really sensitive information out of them, and of course all the while CIA agents were watching from the other side of a one-way mirror. This program was called, I'm not making this up, Operation Midnight Climax. It was the real name. It sounds like something Michael Scott would name it. The lead agent behind Operation Midnight Climax was George White, who also liked taping these encounters and then blackmailing the Johns later on. So that's cool. George White actually said one time that he got into the spy game because, quote, where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, and pillage with the sanction and blessing of the All-Highest? Yeah, where else? Operation Midnight Climax got started in New York, but it later expanded over to San Francisco, which is where things really went off the rails. There are stories of agents literally just going to bars and dosing random strangers and then, kicking back and watching what happened. A report on these abuses hit the CIA in 1963, which put a stop to Operation Midnight Climax. But the CIA apparently continued to run prostitutes for a couple of years afterwards in San Francisco. As a wise man once said, pimpin' ain't easy, but it's necessary. All this drugging and pimping came out in 1974 when Seymour Hersh of the New York Times ran an expose on it, and believe it or not, the government actually did something about it. Granted, what they did was they turned it into a conspiracy-laden show, but they did something. The then Vice President Nelson Rockefeller formed the Rockefeller Commission to look into this, but it quickly spilled over into all kinds of other things, including the JFK assassination. Because this whole thing goes deep, man. How deep? Two of the Watergate burglars, E. Howard Hunt and Frank Sturgis, were both in Dallas, Texas in November of 1963. Were they there to shop at Neiman Marcus? I mean, maybe it's a fine store, but probably not. Yeah, Sturgis especially had a whole history of political assassinations. Here he is in Cuba standing over a mass grave of Fidel Castro's opponents, and here he is in Dallas in November of 1963 as one of the three tramps in Dealey Plaza. Coincidence? And you know what? Sturgis never even actually worked for the CIA. He just kind of seemed to show up whenever shady things were going on in the 50s and 60s, which is basically how the CIA operated. They were basically just a rogue agency back then. But thanks to Seymour Hersh's bold investigative journalism, all of that got exposed, and now the government is in no way tracking you or anybody else in the country. So, what did MKUltra actually accomplish? Sidney Gottlieb apparently thought the whole project was a waste of time. They never found a single truth serum. They never programmed a single unwitting assassin. And they did find a way to program dogs to walk into a square by putting brain implants in there. They actually opened up the dog's skulls and put brain implants in and were able to basically remote control, have them walk in a square. And that's what's going to really piss you off about this video, isn't it? But we'll never know if there's more stuff involved in MKUltra to piss you off, because by the time the thing was unveiled, most of the documents around it had been destroyed. One that did survive was on Subproject 54, which tried to erase memories from people by just conking them on the head or subjecting them to very loud sonic pulses. So, I mean, can you actually control somebody's mind? The research says no, that you can't actually get somebody to unwillingly do something they don't want to do. Of course, who needs mind control when you can always rely on good old threats and intimidation, which the CIA fell back on in the coming years. The record's actually very clear that the Soviet Union did engage in mind games and mind control experiments, but I would argue that MKUltra is really, if anything, a success for the Soviet Union, because their propaganda, fostered this environment where lawmen began to act like rogue agents and torturers. Now, in recent years, countless conspiracy theories have popped up around MKUltra on the internet, because internet. But this comes with its own pros and cons. According to Marie D. Jones, who wrote a book on mind control and did an article in Wired magazine, quote, "It's important that the truth of MKUltra is known, but the way it's become so well known in popular culture has also become a bit of a problem. We've gone from this intellectual probing of its origins to just believing in complete insanity, such as it targeting celebrities and making them do weird things. Which is why when Al Roker flubs an attempt at humor on live TV, it becomes proof of MKUltra mind control." MKUltra was a dark, disturbing chapter in the history of the American intelligence agencies, and ultimately it was a failure. Now, I know a lot of you people out there in the comments are going to say that it's not a failure, that they have mind control abilities, it's just that it's all been hidden from the public and nobody really knows the extent of it all. When it's just as possible that all this was hidden from the public because of all the, secretly drugging people with illicit substances, murders, and whoremongering. Maybe, just maybe, that's reason enough. Besides, the only organization we know for sure is trying to control people's minds today is Facebook. It's true. MKUltra is just one of dozens of bizarre spy scenarios that were cooked up in the heat of the Cold War. The heat of the Cold War? Yeah, I'm going with it. If you want to know more about the bizarre and creative methods that were used on both sides during the Cold War, you should check out the series The Spying Game, Tales from the Cold War on CuriosityStream.
This is True News. I'm Rick Wiles. Atlanta lawyer Lynn Wood filed an affidavit in federal court on Tuesday affirming allegations he made about U.S. Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts and former Vice President Mike Pence. Mr. Wood submitted the affidavit in U.S. District Court in Brooklyn, New York, as part of his response to a libel case a case to oust him from litigating a libel lawsuit he filed in the Brooklyn court in 2018 on behalf of a California woman who claimed that MSNBC news commentator Joy Reid defamed her in social media posts. The Georgia attorney told the federal court that he was in possession of credible evidence of serious wrongdoing by high-ranking government officials, including potentially serious crimes perpetrated by the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. Lynn Wood also stated in the court document that he had evidence to support his accusation that former Vice President Mike Pence is a traitor. He said the evidence was given to the U.S. Secret Service. Your True News team is ready to jump into this salacious news story on the second day of the impeachment trial of Donald Trump, currently underway in the United States Senate. We're starting with Lynn Wood's allegations rather than going to the Senate trial. The Senate trial is going to go on for quite some time. But what Lynn Wood has done this week is stunning, because you have an attorney who has filed in federal court before a federal judge allegations that the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court was involved in some type of sex trafficking crimes, because that's what's in these documents.
Yes.
To me, that's the biggest story in the world today.
how significant is this release this week as opposed to? I mean, he's made the accusations in the past. What's different now, Rick?
Because he's put it in a federal court.
Yeah, he swore on this.
Just you and me as citizens, if we filed a document in a federal court alleging that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court was involved in some type of child sex crime, that in itself would be a major development, because you have to have the evidence to back it up, or you're liable for the court to take action against you.
Yeah, punish you for lying, for wasting the court's time, for perjury.
When we say punishment, how far can that punishment go?
Yes, and in Lynn Wood's case, he is an officer of the court.
As a lawyer, that's right.
He can be disbarred.
He has a different status. He's an officer of the court, and so the bar is much higher for an attorney or a judge, somebody who makes these types of statements in a federal court. It's not that he just shot off his mouth in a trial and said something that he shouldn't. He wrote this down. He signed it. This is a sworn affidavit given to a federal judge that he's in possession of evidence that could lead to the arrest of the Chief Justice of the United States. And furthermore, that he gave the United States Secret Service some type of information that he says proves that Mike Pence is a traitor.
Yeah, the trial wasn't even about Lynn Wood.
Right.
He's just representing someone, and they wanted to get him off the case because they were saying, this guy's crazy, look at his tweets.
And so
that's really what it boils down to. Yes. So he goes, oh yeah? Oh, those tweets?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to back that up.
Well, for people who are not,
that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
I was going to say, for people who aren't aware of the tweets, these are the tweets that Lynn Wood put out last year, which we covered at the time because how shocking they were. These are the subjects of this attempted to remove him from being able to practice in New York. His first tweets: I believe Chief Justice John Roberts and a multitude of powerful individuals worldwide are being blackmailed in a horrendous scheme involving rape and murder of children captured on videotape. I have the key to the files containing the videos. I have also shared this information. It goes on to say the blackmail targets are approached with a gun, a child, and a camera. The target is ordered to rape the children on video. And before I read any more of this, if you have children, obviously, in the room, this gets pretty graphic. The target is then ordered to shoot the child on video. The target is then owned and controlled by the blackmailers until blackmail evidence loses its value. This blackmail scheme is conducted by members of 10 of the world's most well-known and elite intelligence agencies. One of those groups was hacked by a group known as Lizard Squad. The blackmail files of rape and murder were obtained by this group, and copy was provided to Isaac Cappy. He ends the last tweet of note here is, this tweet was an insurance policy. The evil forces behind this blackmail scheme of child rape and murder need to know that others have encryption key. I have procedure in place if I die in near term or any member of my family is harmed or threatened, key will be released. So this was posted before his Twitter account was banned, and this was in the midst of President Trump's challenge to the election.
Can we put in perspective who Lynn Wood is? This is not some fly-by-the-night, no name. This guy,
prominent
attorney, represented Richard Jewell, who got him off from the Olympic bombings. Mm-hmm. The kids from
Nicholas
Salmon, the kids who were with the Covington kids, won both of these
against CNN.
This guy is a heavy hitter when it's in the area of law.
And of course, the news media is painting him as a crackpot, that he's lost his mind. Like he used to be smart, used to be credible, but he's gone crazy. He's
3
lost
months
his
ago,
mind.
he was smart.
Yes, but now he's crazy. That's the way the media, because in all the articles it'll say, Lynn Wood continues to make outrageous claims of conspiracy theories involving Trump. Global pedophile rings and so forth.
And the Trump election was stolen, so they threw him in with that group.
But it's the pedophile rings that really bother them.
Imagine that being said in public, and not being covered. Like 20 years ago, Rick, 30 years ago, if you would have saw that and that had been put out there, would that have been top page stories? Now it's not even covered.
No.
There may be a Senate trial over it 30 years ago, something like this.
Investigation. I mean, you think about Senator Frank Church would have held
the church
Senate investigations on this. He's alleging that members of 10 elite intelligence agencies.
The Five Eyes doubled.
I've said for years Jeffrey Epstein worked for Mossad. If Lynn Wood is correct, Mossad was just one of 9 other intelligence organizations that cooperated on this scheme.
And the name Isaac Cappy was in there, and a lot of people don't know who he was. Isaac Cappy was a former child actor, and he hadn't been working for a while, and all of a sudden he comes out on YouTube exposing all these high-level celebrities as pedophiles, as in this ring.
Yeah, alleging that they were involved.
And guess what happened to Mr. Cappy? He accidentally jumped off a bridge. That's what happened to him. His last post, and I've seen the videos out there. And he's like, "I'm scared. I don't know what's going on. A lot of things are happening. I hope I make another video," which he never did.
Of course, the news media just passes it off as well. He was depressed. He was despondent. He wasn't in his right mind. That's why he jumped off the bridge. He made these crazy statements, and then he went and jumped off the bridge.
Well, who is in the right mind jumping off a bridge?
Right.
So you don't do that.
Right. So you get pushed off the bridge.
Yes.
To me, this is the biggest story of the day.
Oh, man.
Do we have more quotes from Lynn Wood?
Yes, so the actual filing, what I did is I pulled specific quotes from it of what Lynn Wood has said. So he said, "I have also exercised my right of free speech to advocate for protection of the Bill of Rights, honest elections, and against pedophilia and child sex trafficking. I've also received credible evidence of serious wrongdoing by high-ranking government officials, which I have brought to the attention of the public and to federal law enforcement officials. The evidence of wrongdoing includes evidence of potentially serious crimes perpetrated by the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court." That was a direct quote from the filing, the affidavit. What he was responding to, Rick, is there was a filing by the lawyers for Joy Reid that said...
Joy Reid, the MSNBC
commentator.
Yes.
What he's responded was this. Mr. Wood has accused the Chief Justice of arranging an illegal adoption of 2 young children from Wales through Jeffrey Epstein, and saying during a telephone call that former President Trump is an expletive who could not be allowed another term. Mr. Wood has also suggested that the Chief Justice is a murderous pedophile, was mixed up with Jeffrey Epstein, and involved in the death of Justice Scalia, was being blackmailed, almost trafficking children.
Wait a minute. Lynn Wood, you said 3 things in that sentence. Lynn Wood suggested that Chief Justice John Roberts is a murderous pedophile? Not just a pedophile, but a pedophile who has murdered children?
Yes, murders children. That's actually, that was quoting from tweets that Lynn Wood, the attorney for Joy Reid, was quoting from them. Tweets which said, "You are recorded discussing Justice Scalia's successor before date of his sudden death. How did you know Scalia was going to die?" Well, that's something that Lynn Wood had tweeted. Also, Lynn Wood had tweeted, "Are you a member of any club or cabal requiring minor children as initiation fee? My information was from reliable sources that Roberts arranged an illegal adoption of 2 young children from Wales through Jeffrey Epstein." I think we can all agree that Epstein knows pedophilia. I have linked Roberts to illegal adoption, Jeffrey Epstein, pedophilia, and prior knowledge of Scalia's death. So that's what the Joy Reid lawyer was responding to and quoting in their own filing. Again, this is also a filing in federal court under the same punishment as Lynn Wood.
Which you just read, that's part of the filing?
What I just read is what Lynn Wood has tweeted, and what I read there with what Wood was responding to, that is in the filing. It's what Lynn Wood was filing against. He was basically filing a response to the filing of Joy Reid's lawyer in federal court.
Wood said, "You are recorded discussing Justice Scalia's successor
Yes, he tweeted that.
Before the date of his sudden death." Who was discussing Scalia's successor?
This tweet was directed at Chief Justice John Roberts. This was a tweet that Lin Wood had posted on Twitter prior to removal of his account.
He's saying that John Roberts was talking about who would replace Justice Scalia before Scalia died?
That's what he's claiming.
Just days before he died.
Which is an incredible claim, because you don't just remove or replace.
You can't remove
either
or
die,
replace.
you have to be impeached and removed. I mean, there's a specific process, but it's no small thing for the Chief Justice to be conspiring. That's what he's alleging, conspiring to remove a fellow conservative justice.
Did Scalia know something about Roberts?
You have to wonder if Antonin Scalia questioned over the years why Justice Roberts kept voting against the conservative majority.
He also said, is he talking to Roberts?
The tweet was directed at John Roberts, yes.
So Lin Wood tweeted a question to Chief Justice Roberts. Are you a member of any club or cabal requiring minor children as initiation fee? My information from reliable source is that Roberts arranged an illegal adoption of 2 young children from Wales through Jeffrey Epstein. I have linked Roberts to illegal adoption, Jeffrey Epstein pedophilia, and prior knowledge of Scalia's death. Oh.
Sounds like an episode of True News there.
Sounds like it should be front page, right? This is an international story.
It's all the stuff we've covered for years.
Yeah, and
Scalia was murdered.
He was a sitting chief justice or justice, associate justice, with no autopsy. There was no autopsy done on this guy.
He woke up dead
with a pillow over his face.
With a pillow over his face at a hunting lodge that was owned and controlled by a secret society. That's why Lin Wood is saying, are you a member of a club or cabal that requires an initiation involving your initiation fee? You have to bring a child to be initiated? How satanic can this be?
The most satanic. I can't think of anything more satanic other than eating the children.
The thing is, though, how long has Lin Wood been sitting on this information, and what is he doing? Like, why aren't you getting this out by any means necessary? I mean, I would be if I had this stuff, I would be scared, like that I'm in possession of it.
It is very odd. I checked one of the only social media platforms that Lin Wood has access to. It's a Telegram account. It's hardly even mentioned this lawsuit filing. I mean, you think about it. You've just filed this in federal court. It's not. I found one posting about the lawsuit, but nothing about the specifics that I found reading the actual lawsuit.
So what's he waiting for?
Maybe his day maybe this is how it plays out, and he's in court and he's going to let it out, and he kind of backdoored his way into it. I don't know. But what he is saying is crazy sounding, but he's saying it under penalty of going to jail, getting disbarred. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen to him.
The last time I was invited to be a guest on the Alan Combs show, the late Alan Combs. Alan passed away. I hope he believed on the name of Jesus Christ before he died. I personally witnessed to Alan Combs, and Alan was a good guy. I liked Alan.
The Lord used you for that.
Yeah, he was a good guy. I hope he got saved, and only God knows his condition. I'll never, ever try to figure out where somebody's at right now after they've passed away. We're not qualified to do that. But Alan called me, or his producer called, and this was shortly after Justice Scalia died, and we had made some shows, news programs here about Justice Scalia. And so the Fox Radio News Network called me and said, would you go on Alan's show today? He wants to talk to you about Justice Scalia. We happened to be in Nashville at the time. I agreed to do it. We were only 3-4 minutes, no more than 5 minutes into the interview. Alan said, you believe Justice Scalia was murdered? Yes, I do. Who killed him? I said, the same group that killed John F. Kennedy.
That interview ended very quickly.
The interview ended Done. They told me to prepare to be on the radio for about 20 minutes.
Right.
It was more like 3 or 4 minutes. It was done, over.
You touched one of those third rails that you can't talk about.
Yes. And, he just said, well, thank you, Rick. We appreciate you. Goodbye. We've got to take a break. And, I'm still on break. I'm still waiting. He never called back, But there are topics that you are not allowed to talk about.
Mm.
And John F. Kennedy's assassination is one of them. You cannot talk about the JFK assassination. It is still off limits.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you want to talk about, if you want to affirm the official narrative, then you're allowed to talk about it. But Edward, I don't know, maybe you plan to bring this up later, and I don't want to get out of sequence. But what do you recall about the secret society that was involved in that hunting lodge in Texas?
So the Order of St. Hubertus is
the Order of St.
Hubertus.
Hubertus.
It's,
and who is Hubertus?
St. Hubert, the figure that it's based on, as a Christian figure from Austria. He claims he fell over in a wooded area and had a vision come to him, and a large stag came out of the wilderness, and it told him to respect nature. Jägermeister, the alcohol, uses that imagery for their drink. It has a lot of pagan undertonings to it. A lot of other pagan themes use this very imagery, but it comes from the Order of St. Hubertus. Now that Austria had just gone through a holy war, a war between Protestants and Catholics. So hunters in that country, a lot of them actually were employed to hunt Christians. They were sharpshooters. People could hunt. You could fire a rifle.
They hunted humans?
Hunted humans. So the people that went to form this order, it doesn't really have these wonderful magical beginnings like the society's current page would like to believe. They were likely the descendants of the groups that killed fellow believers. This order formed a chapter in America through the Bohemian Grove Society, the very group that hosts the cremation of care. There's a satanic ritual every year.
The Horned Owl.
The Horned
Bring
Owl.
paid prostitutes there.
Yes. Pete McCloskey
Where every
talks about
major
it, male and female.
where every major Republican leader attends the
We've
Bohemian
spoken
Grove.
with a person who's attended to that
Yes.
multiple times. Pete McCloskey, representative. He said, yeah, it gets a little strange there.
So they got
Not
their
my
debut.
cup of tea, is what he said.
Yeah, he said something very close to what Richard Nixon said about that place.
Yeah.
That society hosted them, and they've since flourished in America. And as you noted, one of the leaders of this group in America, the chapter here, is John Poindexter, the owner of the Presidio Ranch, where Antonin Scalia met his untimely death without his security detail.
I remember just tossing out the idea, the possibility. When you told me, what year was that? 2015, 16?
16, I believe. Because when we debuted Praise It.
Is when Scalia died. Because it was in February, is when I was on the Alan Colmes show. I remember sometime in February. I remember just speculating. Is it out of the realm of possibility that this secret hunting lodge in Texas, if it's the St. Hubertus order, and that order has a history of hunting humans, was the wild game on that hunting lodge were the illegal immigrants coming across the border, and are the elite going to Texas to that secret society lodge to shoot humans?
It is not a crazy proposition. But what is a fact is that if you talk to any ranchers who live along the border, they find skeletons of illegal immigrants all the time, bodies.
Right.
And they just chalk it up, they collapse.
And don't I know people out there, oh, that's so wild and crazy. Well, Arnie Hammer eating humans, I think is kind of weird.
It's a real story. That's 2021.
Okay.
Baal worship, all this from the beginning of time, this has happened. One thing that we noticed when we were in New Mexico and we went to go get a response from Jeffrey Epstein's place when we went to his Zorro Ranch.
Uninvited.
Well, we just needed to get a response from see if any had family members, because we were there the day he supposedly kills himself.
Right.
We found a weird looking, plaque or some kind of thing that dated back to that time period.
It was the crest of New Mexico, a special stone tablet.
Yeah.
Very odd, along with the fertility statues.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. The fertility statues on Epstein's house in New Mexico. Okay, we're going to get back to Linwood. What else is? We have him responding. Mr. Wood has accused the Chief Justice of arranging an illegal adoption of 2 young children from Wales through Jeffrey Epstein. What's the basis of this allegation?
So this to show when Linwood said on record, "I affirm to everything," and I have evidence. He was saying he had evidence of this directly. And I know that because this was the filing Linwood was responding to. The filing stated on January 19, Mr. Wood posted that Chief Justice John Roberts must resign. This is Joy Reid's attorney saying this. Jeffrey Epstein arranged for the adoption of Roberts' children. Roberts used the children to gain entry into the cabal of power and influence. Roberts used the children to gain entry into the cabal of power and influence. Now that is what Linwood is affirming to. That's what he's saying he has evidence toward, but also what he's saying he wanted to go to jail over. Now, there was a few other things in it. I'll simply go over them. He did say that his tweets about Vice President Mike Pence, holding him accountable, referring to firing squads, that was protected rhetorical and political hyperbole. It's an interesting term. So this is something that he did try to back away from a little bit in the official court filings, that protected rhetorical and political hyperbole. And as a renowned defamation lawyer, he knows that term means that he believes he was simply proposing something without ever wanting to take action. It's defined in defense for First Amendment.
But he also stated in the court document that he gave evidence to the U.S. Secret Service to support his allegation that Mike Pence is a traitor, and I'm claiming that the Vice President of the United States, former Vice President, is a traitor. Okay, a traitor to whom? A traitor to the Republican Party, a traitor to the United States of America, a traitor to Donald Trump. I mean, a traitor, when you're using that kind of term against the Vice President of the United States, you would assume that he's referring to treasonous behavior that undermines the national security of the United States of America. Is that what he's alleging?
I believe so, because this is his direct quote. Is Mr. Wood told his followers, and this is a direct quote from his Twitter, "Lock up traitor Mike Pence for allegedly conspiring with Rod Rosenstein to overthrow our government."
And in the court documents, he states, "I have credible whistleblower evidence to support the truth of my statements. I have not received a retraction demand from Justice Roberts or his counsel, and he has not made any claim to date that my posts are false and defamatory.
Ooh.
Former Vice President Mike Pence or Rod Rosenstein have not sent retraction demands or claims that my post of and concerning them are false and defamatory."
Well, leave this off. This is important.
Yes.
This is very important. As an attorney, he's fully aware of the legal ramifications of what he has done, of what could come against him. If his allegations were false against the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, the Chief Justice would file legal documents to have Linwood disbarred.
Correct.
That's minor. That's just the first thing.
And that's what caught my eye.
And he's saying neither John Roberts, Mike Pence, or Rod Rosenstein have taken any actions to retract his statements or charge him with defaming their name and reputation.
So you have to ask the question, why haven't they? All right, so what are the alternatives? Either they consider the accusations so crazy, so wild, they just ignore it, or there's truth to it, and they can't respond to it.
Right.
I would think if it's just crazy wild, they would come out, we feel for Mr. Wood, and we hope that he recovers from his mental breakdown, something like that. But there's not even that.
If Linwood were just an average citizen, or even it's a country lawyer out in some rural town, they would ignore it. But he's been in the news, not just this election. He's been in the news numerous times, and particularly this election, alleging widespread voter fraud.
He's even cheered Linwood. Think about this. Mike Pence absolutely talked about the Covington kid scandal. I'm talking about the attack on those boys and what they alleged about. He's cheered the defense carried out by Linwood in the past. And Linwood is not mincing words. He actually said that Mike Pence is a traitor, a communist sympathizer, and a child molester. That was a tweet posted. It was his final tweet before January 7th when his account got banned.
What did he accuse Mike Pence of being?
A traitor, a communist sympathizer, and a child molester. And again, this is not Edward Zoll's opinion. This is what Joy Reid's attorney documented and placed into federal evidence in the filing.
Look, throughout the Trump administration, as the shadow government attempted to remove Donald Trump through one fake investigation after another, I never fully trusted Mike Pence. I certainly didn't trust Rod Rosenstein. Rosenstein was up to his eyeballs in it. The reason I didn't trust Mike Pence is because Mr. Trump continued to appoint swamp snakes to his administration. I mean, you point one or two and you get bit, okay, you learn your lesson. But he just continued to appoint them.
Entire nest of them.
Yes. And so we kept asking, who is whispering in Donald Trump's ear, you should appoint this person? Well, at the beginning of the administration, in the transition, who was in charge of the Trump administration transition team in vetting the people who would be appointed? Who was the person in charge?
Vice President Mike Pence.
He's part of the Tiger Team, as they call it.
Who took down General Michael Flynn?
Vice President-elect Mike Pence. Whispered in the ear of the president, so I can no longer trust Michael Flynn.
So Mike Pence was at the top of this. And then we also, the allegation that came out that in the fall of 2016, that there was a secret plan by the Republican National Committee to replace Donald Trump as the Republican nominee and to appoint Michael Pence as the presidential candidate, and that Mike Pence secretly agreed to the plan. But it was
after the Billy Bush tape, right?
Yes, it was never carried out. So that's, but those things are far removed from what Lin Wood has said.
Tame compared to what's been alleged.
That is political treachery.
And he's backing it up saying, look, I got evidence. I have a whistleblower. So he's bringing other people into it. He's not just by himself on an island and say, I got a.
And he says he has an encryption key.
Got videos. He's not backing down is the big point about this. He is just stepping on the pedal and say, yeah, you want to go? I got stuff.
But an affidavit, even if he says he has evidence, is not evidence itself.
That's right.
Okay,
yeah, but he's putting himself on a ledge that he can lose a lot. So
I understand, but still,
is he this crazy then?
Are we boxing ourselves in again here, and saying, well, he said this and he's got everything on the line, but...
Well, the reason we're talking about it, Doc, is because Lin Wood is a credible attorney who has been in the news numerous times in his career, has been in a high profile during the 2020 election. You can't ignore it. The fact that he's saying that he has the evidence.
He's doing it in court. He's doing it in court.
Yes,
this
and he's doing it in federal court.
Like Twitter's one thing. Yeah, I was throw off some tweets and like, oh man, I shouldn't have said that. Or no, he's like, okay, I'm in federal court.
There's real repercussions.
Right. So but Doc, I agree. We said in the aftermath of the election, we said to Lin Wood over this program, come on the program. We've invited you
We said in person in Alpharetta, Georgia.
Yes, you personally talked to him and asked him to come on True News, and we've never got a response. We said, if you have this kind of evidence, we'll hear you out. We'll give you time. Yeah. Come on True News and present the evidence.
At the beginning of the show, I said it. Look, what are you waiting for? He's had this for a while now. He didn't just acquire this. This is at least 3 months old.
Mm-hmm. Well, what makes me, I've got, his credibility is on the line with this, right? So, and I understand that in a court, you can't release all your evidence until it's time to release evidence, right? So, but there should be some way that we can back up some information. So let's take, for instance, Justice Roberts. All right, so he has accused Justice Roberts of child trafficking and
in association with Jeffrey Epstein.
Right. Is there evidence to that? I mean, is that something that we can go back and say, is there any information that's out there that we can go back and say, you know what, there's some meat on that bone?
Not yet.
Well, there's thing that's never been explained.
There's the flight log.
Okay, that is, yes.
All right, so there's the John Roberts name on the flight log. This is, I believe, a flight log from 2011.
Jeffrey Epstein's flight log.
Right, and going from Palm Beach International to Teterboro Airport up in New Jersey. John Roberts was on that flight. Now, was that Chief Justice John Roberts? Well, who knows?
And we've asked that
John
question
Roberts.
for what, 2 years now? It's about 2 years we've had this information. Do you recall when it first came out?
It came out in about 2000, after, I say 2015 is when we really got this, and we've asked, most of media has asked, never has there been an answer.
No, most of the media has not asked.
I say some of the media in our spectrum. That's what I mean. I don't mean the establishment shills, I don't mean the propaganda outlets, I mean other people that are wondering, what is with a flight log that has the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court?
Well, it has a guy.
We just know that it's a name that is the same as the Chief Justice. It just doesn't say, it doesn't have his Social Security number.
Right.
Doesn't have his street address. But we've asked the Chief Justice through this program, is it you?
Well, and that's a fair question to ask, because aren't there also being questions about other people that were on those flight logs, Edward?
Yes, Doug Band, Bill Clinton. What's true about these flight logs is a name was only ever placed if it was a VIP, which compounds this more. Why would you put someone who isn't important, named John Roberts, on the flight log for the manifest?
Why would you put somebody who was not important on a private jet?
Oh,
yeah.
And
unimportant people don't get invitations to fly private jets.
I've never been on a private jet.
Right. Then we have this article this is from July of this past year. So here's somebody that was on the flight logs, okay? Their names appear, all right? Epstein investigators want to talk to Guinness family aristocrat who flew on the infamous Lolita Express 32 times. So there's other people that want to talk to people that have been on the flight logs. I mean, wouldn't that therefore suggest that maybe there's other people worthy of investigation, especially a prominent name like John Roberts?
And is this the Guinness booze family?
Yeah, the heiress.
The heiress,
Yes.
Claire Hazel, which is what she was known as when she worked with Jeffrey Epstein. This was before she married into one of the richest families in Ireland.
You know what house she purchased? She purchased the house used in Eyes Wide Shut.
That's right. That's correct.
The
Maria
movie-
Farmer told me that, and I confirmed that.
The movie that is about a sex cult that Stanley Kubrick was making and got killed or died mysteriously before it was in full post-production because they said, you got a little too close to this one, buddy. You're showing a little bit too much. And
what else did Kubrick say at that time?
Was it?
Do you remember? He said that he participated in the moon landing of filming in a studio.
He made Space Odyssey 2001. If you look at that movie, that's almost better than stuff that has today with CG. It's beautifully done. But this guy was involved with the highest of that, echelon of people.
And she bought the house?
She needed that house.
And they shot that particular sex cult movie in it.
And Tom Cruise with Nicole Kidman.
They divorced shortly after.
Was it Harvey Weinstein involved in that production too?
He might have funded it. I'm not sure about that, but no doubt that movie's all about a sex cult. Like, that's what it is about. It's the most crazy movie, ominous soundtrack. They have a Gregorian or a Romanian soundtrack to it, flipped backwards. It's backwards, and it sounds so insane. But that's the type of people we're dealing with here. She needed that. Why would you want to buy that house? And be involved with Ghislaine as well.
Wow.
Well, that just shows you that there's other names that are involved that other investigators have looked at, and so why not John Roberts?
Okay, there have, going back to 2015, there were news media organizations that questioned Chief Justice John Roberts' flip-flop on Obamacare. He shocked everybody, especially Justice Scalia, who was angry. According to reports, he was angry at Roberts. He felt betrayed by Roberts because all conservatives expected John Roberts to vote no against Obamacare.
A Bush appointee.
Yes.
Like a Republican.
And it was a big shock that he voted in favor of Obamacare. So this is a Washington Post article from 2015. Chief Justice Roberts quietly burns Scalia in the Obamacare decision. Anything else in this, Edward, that we should know?
The main point is that there was contention between people you would think were allies. Again, they're both conservative justices, yet something was going on the year before his untimely death.
And so there was hard feelings between Scalia and Roberts.
Yes.
There was a rift. But others started to ask questions. And let's go down to number 8. This is Esquire.
So Esquire magazine. This is from June 2015. The blackmailing of John Roberts. Now, Esquire isn't, some fly-by-night, outlet out there. Normally, the articles they produce are well-researched.
And not right-wing.
Yeah. And so this was quite an eye-opening article here, Rick. It suggested that perhaps the reason why John Roberts is voting the way he has been voting is that he was being blackmailed, basically. That they had something on him. If you could control just one or two key justices on the Supreme Court, most of the decisions on the Supreme Court, the overwhelming majority are split right down the middle. So if you could just guide one or two, you could change the whole dynamics of the Supreme Court.
I can tell you at that time, the rumors that were being circulated, which we never promoted that because there was no evidence. It was just people were trying to come up with a reason.
Speculating.
Yeah, they're speculating. And so a lot of podcasters were saying that John Roberts was gay. This was the blackmail that they were using against him. I can tell you, to my recollection, I don't recall one alternative news podcaster suggesting that John Roberts was involved in a pedophile ring. Most of the discussion was, he was, as a young guy, he was gay, and they have evidence on it, and he doesn't want this to come out. What Lin Wood is suggesting is so dark.
Well, he's clarifying what blackmail
satanic
means. Yes, he actually says, what is blackmail? Well, this is what blackmail is. It involves a gun, a kid, and a videotape.
I mean, yeah.
He's saying what it is.
There's somebody, an intelligence agency agent, put a gun to John Roberts' head and ordered him to rape and kill a child while it was video recorded. That's what Lin Wood said.
Exactly.
It's called a snuff film.
Yes. I mean, that's what he said, right?
Snuff films do exist.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But he's alleging that intelligence agencies do this to have control of governments.
And then what did we find out with the Epstein case, how prolific it was? They would brag about who they had on tape. They found his mansion in New York.
Thousands of children.
Yeah, every room had videotapes in it. Was it Maria Farmer?
The New York police said that there were thousands of photographs in that home in New York. Where are the photographs? And where are the girls? If there were thousands of girls, Where are they? They haven't come forward, have they?
No.
Most likely they were murdered.
Look, when we were out there in the Zora Ranch, it is in the middle of nowhere. Like, there's no security gates, there's no security cameras. It's in the middle of a desert.
You wouldn't know someone had gotten shot. You wouldn't know someone gotten attacked because, as you said, it's in the middle of a desert.
You could scream as loud as you want. It goes into nowhere because there's nothing around.
Wayne Allen Root, the former Libertarian Party presidential candidate, writing for Glenn Beck's The Blaze, this is June 2015, he wrote an article, Was Supreme Court Justice John Roberts blackmailed?
Yes.
And Esquire was really, they were responding to this article.
Right.
And they included quotes, incredible statements made by Wayne Allen Root. And the interesting thing about Wayne Allen Root is he actually did bring up the prospect of assault of children.
Yes.
He said that the just blackmail one or two key conservative leaders to stop the GOP from blocking Obama's agenda. He's referring to John Roberts. He's saying just find out the weak link of a key opposition leader or government official and hold it over their head.
Yeah. Go ahead, Edward.
He goes on to say, well, if you go after Obamacare, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, massive tax increases, amnesty for illegals, the list is long, but so am I being too cynical? Really, did anyone suspect former House Speaker Dennis Hastert was a child molester who committed crimes with underage boys?
Now, let me ask you that, Rick. I mean, when that story broke about Hastert, okay, I know I was shocked. I mean, what? What are you talking about? You're talking about former Speaker of the House here. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was so far removed from anything you could even do the math on at that time. What was your reaction?
It was, and then the story just disappeared.
Right.
Hastert is gone. Story disappears. No more discussion about the House Speaker was a pedophile.
And that's a real story. That happened. That's history.
And it's interesting that Wayne Allen Root brought that up in this particular article because now, as we move forward here and with the accusations we have from Lynn Wood, all the algebra starts fitting together a little bit more.
Go ahead.
Well, Jimmy Savile, we know, with the royal family, the BBC presentator, prolific. I mean, you're talking about the worst of the worst. They
were satanic rituals involving children.
A necromancy. This is what we're talking about. That was covered up for how many years? He used to have
decades.
Knighted. He was knighted. He would go
and he worked for the BBC, and people at the BBC knew that Savile was a pedophile.
He just
went too far with it.
Well, he had kind of like these specials for kids, like hospitals. Always kids' hospitals. Mm-hmm. Who's going to miss a little kid here and there?
But how did that story end? The investigation in Great Britain into the pedophile ring, it ended up with the man who made the accuser, the whistleblower, was charged with defaming the elite of Great Britain, and he is in prison.
Yes.
They went after the
that's how the elite deal with people who tell the truth.
Or fly off a bridge. You got two endings here.
I want to quickly go through, Edward, we have some stuff here involving the adopted children of the Chief Justice. Tell us why this is important, that we should be discussing it.
So in the court affidavit, Lynn Wood alleged that Jeffrey Epstein helped Justice Roberts and his wife adopt Jack and Rosie Roberts. So it's an adoption that occurred in the year 2000. That was mentioned in the affidavit. It was also mentioned by Wayne Allen Root in 2015. Oddly enough, Wayne Allen Root brought it up and said
that Jeffrey Epstein participated in the adoption process?
That's what Lynn Wood is alleging. Wayne Allen Root did not include Jeffrey Epstein, but did bring up that the kids may be the leverage. What he said was that Barack Obama has basically threatened, and this is direct, I'll just read directly from Wayne Allen Root, he's threatened to deport the adopted children. Wayne Allen Root said there were some shenanigans getting the adoption paperwork done. The threat against him is not actually against him, but against his adopted daughters. Again, this is Wayne Allen Root in 2015 when people were questioning, what is the blackmail? What's the leverage? Why does Justice Roberts vote the way he votes?
Root said that Obama was threatening to deport the Roberts children?
Yes.
Incredible statement based on, again, what have now seen in Lynn Wood's affidavit, because Lynn Wood is once again resurrecting this, but adding to it and tying it to Jeffrey Epstein.
But Obama would not deport any children that came to America, would he?
No.
He wouldn't put them in a cage, would he?
No, he wouldn't do that either. He wouldn't give them tinfoil to sleep under.
2005, Matt Drudge announced that the New York Times was investigating that John Roberts adopted kids.
Right.
Yeah, so this was when Justice Roberts, then not Justice, was going through a confirmation hearing. The question came up because the New York Times had launched its own investigation into where these kids came from.
This is one story I don't remember.
I didn't. When Edward told me about it today, I was like, what are you talking about?
I don't remember this at all.
It was a blip. And again, the New York Times will not do a story today about Mr. Wood's statements about Justice Roberts and the kids, but they absolutely did do a full investigation in 2005. Matt Drudge, he was known for scooping them because he had his sources in them, in the organizations. He posted this in 2005. He said, the New York Times investigates adoption records of Supreme Court nominees' children. New York Times is looking into the adoption records of the children of Supreme Court nominee John G. Roberts, the Drudge Report has learned. The Times has investigative reporter Glenn Justice hot on the case to investigate the status of adoption records of Justice Roberts. Justice Roberts and his wife adopted the children when they were each infants. Both children were adopted from Latin America.
Whoa, wait a minute there.
I thought
Latin
from
America.
Ireland.
I thought they were from Wales.
Oh, well, they're not. You can tell they're not Latinos.
That's right. It's a very odd thing, though.
We have 5 adopted Latinos in our family.
It's like a mini
I can
UN.
recognize children adopted from Latin America. I can recognize them. Those children,
Not so much.
highly unlikely that they came from Latin America.
But
Unless it was a European family living in Latin America that lost their children, somehow those children were put into the adoption.
now, was that the National Enquirer that said that? Was that the Star Tribune along with the alien stories? Who said that?
No, that was first Matt Drudge reporting on what the New York Times was looking into, and then later Associated Press asking the question, where did the kids come from, Latin America or Ireland? Now, officially, it is Ireland. Right now, when you look at the stories about the children, it's Ireland. They're adopted from Ireland. Although Lynn Wood, this affidavit,
or were they transported to Latin America on the Epstein jet?
Why, this is a question because Lynn Wood said in the affidavit, Wales. Wales is not Ireland. There's a sea that separates Wales from Ireland. And unless Lynn Wood made a mistake, a clerical mistake in his lawsuit and in speech he tweeted, he would be inferring that the kids were trafficked from Wales to Ireland prior to adoption. And that is the allegation. We don't have evidence supporting that. Just reading again what Lynn Wood said, Matt Drudge said, and the New York Times said, and was investigating.
Look, I don't have any problem believing that one of the side enterprises that Ghislaine Maxwell operated was selling children.
Well, didn't she have a captain or a submarine?
Yes.
Well, that's easily.
And a helicopter.
Yes, she was a helicopter pilot. She could also pilot a submarine.
Yeah, I guess you have to have a submarine pilot's license to pilot a submarine. And so, but she had one.
But why would you need one? Unless you're moving contraband.
And
undetectable stuff.
And someone that has a helicopter's license and a submarine license sounds like a spy.
Sounds like a spy to me.
So the question of the adoption, it's very important to go back and look at those stories from 2005. The New York Times here, this is a story republished for the Feminists for Life. It's an organization that runs an anti-abortion advocacy group. In here they said that an adopted daughter, Josephine, and son, John, through what the sister of John Roberts' wife said, it was done through a private foundation. Now, further reporting by the Time magazine, said that it was a very tough process. The former law partner of Roberts' wife, Jack McKay, said that the adoption of the kids happened very quickly. It frequently happens when you go through the adoption process. They got very depressed during this process, but it happened. They got offered the kids through a private adoption directly with the family, and they took them without blinking. Took both babies without blinking. Again, it's looking at this before would have been but an eye at this. But
again, from personal experience, my daughter has adopted 8 children total, 8.
Okay, so
2 from
you
Russia.
know, yeah.
2 from Russia, 1 Ukraine, 5 from Latin America.
Did any of those adoptions occur in a blink?
No.
Mm-mm.
No. The first 2 from Russia were, it took several years.
Wow.
Seldom does an adoption just sail through. That in itself is unusual. So Linwood may have something regarding John Roberts. For me, it's easy to connect dots between Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, pedophile ring, selling children, trafficking children around the world. That's what the Epstein-Maxwell business model was all about.
Yes.
Okay. They were selling children, using children, kidnapping children. I believe they murdered children. And so for me, I can easily believe that Chief Justice Roberts placed an order for 2 blonde, blue-eyed children. I don't know if they're blue-eyed.
From Latin America.
From Latin America, yeah. Placed an order, and Jeffrey Epstein said, "Oh, we've got them.
And there just happens
We'll
to be
fly them in here
on
really
the
fast.
flight
Like a
log.
blink, in the blink of an eye, you'll have them."
Yeah, maybe on his Lolita Express, it was trapped. Look, he's on.
Maybe he. When did the Jew? Oh no, that was the wrong dates. I was sorry. I was thinking was the John Roberts flight on the plane at the same time the children were adopted?
No,
but it's big.
the John Roberts on the flight log, that was 2011.
11 children were 2000.
Yeah, that was the first
But
one.
what I was alluding to was his name still.
But the
Some
Guinness
name
Heiress.
is still on there that connects.
Yes.
It might not be him.
The
but
Guinness Heiress
might be.
worked in that time period. 1998 to 2000, she was on it more than 32 times.
Mm-hmm.
So it was active.
Active, yes. I mean, the interesting part about this is simply, if all we get out of Linwood's case is that there is something to the adoption claim.
I would
My goodness.
I would encourage every saint, pray and intercede that Almighty God would reveal the ugly truth about the ruling elite of this world.
Yes.
Pull back the blanket and let the entire world see the maggots. Let it all be exposed. Bring down this cabal. Bring it down. Let it be exposed. That's my prayer, because this thing is so dark, so big. None of us individually can bring this thing down. None of us can do it. It can only be brought down by a sovereign act of Almighty God.
Yes, right.
That's it. It's too dark, too wicked, too deep, and too interconnected with powerful men and women around the world. Only God himself could bring it down. But pray, and because children are being sacrificed to Baal.
That's what it comes down
what's
to.
happening.
It's not like this
children
is-
are being kidnapped look, the first time I became aware of this was in 1984. I was working at CBN. The Holy Spirit spoke to me in 1985. 1985, Holy Spirit spoke to me and told me that children were being kidnapped and sacrificed to Satan. I had never thought about that, and from that time on, I became deeply concerned about the plight of missing children. And here we are now, 2021. It's the topic that will get you deplatformed, get you shut down. You start talking about a pedophile network, and watch what happens to you. It is the one topic that's beyond any other topic that are already prohibited. But man, you talk about a worldwide pedophile network, and watch what happens. I personally think Linwood has something. I really do. I want him to bring it forth. I don't know what he's waiting on. He's a smart lawyer. I don't know when he thinks he's going to get his day in court to present the evidence. But it would, to me, be a smarter thing to just put it out there for the whole world to see it.
That's why
because you're not going to get it in court.
That's why I have a little reservations. I mean, he said he went to the Secret Service. What did they would do with it? FBI, we've heard cases. What are they going to do with it? We have enough ability to just put it out there in the ethos of the internet.
It's called the internet.
Yeah, and just do it. Like,
you give it to the government, they're going to cover it up.
If that's
Secret Service isn't going to reveal it. The FBI is not going to reveal it.
And these networks have been around for a very long time. And they've learned how to hide things very well. And there's a reason why.
And they have
you don't hear
secret
stories.
members throughout the world.
And they only reveal what wants to be revealed.
Well,
That's the only reason why we know about Jerry Saville, is because he was basically being too open about it, and he was basically going to spill everything.
He became overconfident because he knew nothing was going to happen to him.
Right, until it did.
Yeah.
So,
well,
by his own group. So,
pray and ask the Lord to reveal this thing.
Amen.
I mean, at the core of what's happening to our country, at the core, that thing that we're all, that invisible shadow government that we despise, that we want to see it destroyed. At the core of it is this sacrifice of children to Baal.
Yes.
And this thing is not going to be taken down with guns. It's not going to be taken down through politics. It can only be taken down through prayer and an sovereign act of God to reveal the whole thing to the point that people vomit because they can't stand the truth.
Have you ever heard?
That's where we have to move the world.
Have you ever heard of Mark Kilroy? Did you ever hear about that case in Texas? There's a congressman in Texas. He was abducted in Mexico and sacrificed. My wife, who grew up in Mexico, she's from Mexico. They were in fear of this because this would happen quite often of sacrificing kids. This was like a known thing. But yeah, I was curious if you saw, because a congressman, his son went down there, and he got caught up in that group. Got him. His son.
Wow.
I mean, this has been going on for a long time.
It has, for thousands of years. It's in the Bible.
Yeah, it's exactly.
It's in the Bible. Satan has been murdering children for a long, long time. We have a lot more that we could present, but I think we've said all that we really need to say. The rest of it would just be rehashing the political circus that's happening in Washington, D.C. right now, and it's really not worth wasting an hour of your time to talk about it.
Yes, that's true.
We've covered the main thing today, the allegation that there is a worldwide pedophile network. And I encourage you to share this episode of True News with as many people as possible. Encourage them to watch True News. And for those of you who have ears to hear and eyes to see, and you hear the Holy Spirit in your personal prayer life every day, I hope you hear his voice say, we must support True News in 2021. The work that we do is essential. It is dangerous. We do this because we believe our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ desires us to do this. This is the only reason we do it. And we don't make a big effort. We don't make a big deal through this entire program every day to raise money. We simply say once in a while, please support us. And if that resonates in your heart, then I pray that you will be obedient to the Holy Spirit and give a gift. I'm not going to tell you what to give. I'm just asking you to give something, and I'm asking you to do it consistently every month throughout 2021. We need a base of people who stand with us every single month. You have no idea how important that is. I can't stress it enough. A base of people who support us every month. When we have that base, it gives us great confidence to make plans and to go forward for expansion, knowing, hey, we've got these people who are with us, loyal, dedicated, dependable. That's what it means to us, and I hope you become one of those supporters. Be faithful to the Lord. Look, The Lord is coming. We know He's coming back. If you're not doing something for His kingdom, tell me at what point will you get involved? What does it take? What do you tell me? For those of you who don't do anything, I'm just curious. I'm not talking to the people who give. This really baffles me. For people who are Christians and they don't do anything, what is it you're waiting for? Are you waiting for things to get really weird?
Oh, we're there.
Welcome to today.
Are you waiting for persecution?
Hello, we're there.
Are you waiting for darkness to set in? What is the trigger event that will make you get involved with God's kingdom? What is it you're waiting on? That baffles me. That there are, we have hundreds of thousands of people who watch True News every day, but only tens of thousands who support us. I'm like, what's the rest of the people doing? I don't know what you're doing.
And God bless those who do.
Yes, they carry us, but I just wonder what everybody else is waiting on. Is there some sign, some event that's got to happen that you go, that's it, that proves to me we're at the end of the age, Jesus is coming soon?
Is there some news item you're waiting for?
Yeah.
Which news item is it that's going to take you over to that point of saying, man, True News got it right?
How dark does it have to get
before you're ready for the light?
Yeah. I'll let you think about that. In the meantime, we thank the people who do get it and support us and help us. You mean everything to us. You keep us going. God bless. We'll be back here tomorrow, God willing.